It's officially 6:30, so I'd like to call our December 12th, 2022 Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting to order. Can you please call the roll?
Yes. Aaron Angel. Scott Conlon. Jeff Ellenbogen.
Here.
Manoj Gangwar.
Here.
Paige Lewis.
Here.
Nicholas Novello.
Here.
Dan Olson.
Here.
And our Tim Waters, our council liaison, is not present.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to approval of approval of the agenda first. And I'd like to request that we move new business before old business. And otherwise, are there any other changes? If not, I could take a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Go for it.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke. I move that we amend the agenda for new business to take the place of old business and approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Great. Okay, now let's go to previous month's minutes. Does anyone have any changes? Scott?
Yeah, I don't think any of our speakers were from Longmont. I think they were in Lewis. So.
Sure.
Yeah, they were.
We had we did have a Longmonter, but she did not speak. And one was,
Just that the address.
Yeah. and one was, and then everybody else was Lafayette.
Okay.
Okay.
And I had one small change on number 7. The first question, Scott, I think, asked if Steve was going to post a notice or something about the clay soils, but the way it got captured didn't really make sense.
I am planning to, not about the clay soils, but there will be a public notification process before we take soils away from Dry Creek Park.
I just think we need to clarify the question. So did you ask Scott?
Yeah, I asked if there was going to be a public notice, and he said
And
yes.
you said yes.
Not that, did Steve notice that the clay soils were leaving?
Right, yeah, it was just kind of,
Yeah, right.
like all the pieces were there, just not in the right order.
I will be providing a notice once we get the schedule for the contractor, once the cord goes out to.
Will notify.
They did,
As
yeah.
opposed to has noticed, yeah, so along those lines.
All right, anything else? If not, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
A second?
I second that.
All in favor? Great. Do we have any public that would like to be heard? Okay. Seeing none, before we jump into new business, I have a couple of things. One, this is the last meeting for Manoj and Jeff. So I just wanted to thank you both for your service. It's been really fun to have you. Appreciate your commitment to parks and open space and the community. Maybe we could just have a quick round of applause and thanks. The other one is just a quick reminder that we, as part of our bylaws, do operate by Robert's Rules of Order. And I know we're not the most formal board, but I think we've gotten a little bit away from that. So one of the things I'm going to ask is that we remember to just raise your hand if you want to make a comment or ask a question. It really helps me to be able to kind of manage the meeting overall and make sure everyone has a chance to talk. So just a friendly request for meeting management. Okay. New business. David, I don't know who's picking us up.
Yeah, I think, let me go back and do everything. Is it the,
Tribal.
okay. I got Taylor here as well too. So tribal nation, so yes, we chatted a couple times now with the work that the city's been doing with the different tribal nations and indigenous peoples around the Front Range area here, and there's definitely interest in hearing a bit more about that. The work that I can talk a little bit more about is the work we're really doing with an IGA that is still going to legal, so I won't share the whole thing, but I can share some general concepts of that IGA, and really how we're going to do our attempt is to do a better job of working with those tribal nations, those indigenous peoples on them as stakeholders, helping to be part of decision-making processes, including them as they were neighbors as process, even though they may not physically be here this time because the tribe has been moved to another state, or they no longer have the direct access to this area, but historically they were part of this Front Range area, so how we include that. So I'll talk a bit more about that at the open space sort of level, but Cameron is here this evening, and she's going to talk a bit more about some of the things that we've been doing as a city at large. I've been involved on the periphery of those, but Carmen really, we're very fortunate in Longmont to have Carmen, because if we're working with City of Boulder, Boulder County, Carmen is always there and always doing a great job of representing the city and some of the work she's doing. So do you mind, Carmen, doing that higher level?
Yeah, thank you. Carmen Ramirez, Community and Neighborhood Resources. So did anybody do their homework on the links that we sent to you? And if you saw the documentary, you saw that this has been a process of creating trusted relationships that don't happen overnight. So when it comes to our open space, a couple of things, as David mentioned, Boulder County, City of Boulder, City of Longmont is working together to try and find consistency in how we work with tribes, and also not to overtax. Because we have a tendency to ask people to volunteer like yourselves and to do a lot of work without being mindful of the relationship and what is the long-term purpose. So that's really what the IGA is going to be, is that the three of us can work consistently across Boulder County, open to other communities who are smaller, City of Longmont, City of Lafayette, Town of Erie. They have some interest in joining, and lots of times this way they don't have to start the relationship. We've established a relationship already. We are the first city in the world to become a sister cities with a sovereign tribal nation. There's been nobody else that has done that. There's a lot of reasons, good reasons, and we actually were told not to do it, but it was very interesting, this whole process. So over the last 4 or 5 years, we've been building relationships. We've been talking about open space. I can tell you that when I meet with elders and they talk about how they used to come through this area and go up to Estes and gather medicine, and where that medicine lies. And it's interesting because it's some of the trails that we take, and they're like, but I can't tell you where that medicine is. I can tell you where some of the medicine is. But it's very interesting that that is not a story that is told about our open space. And David has been amazing at supporting us to really be inclusive of that history of the Native people that were here and have been displaced. Before the Chicago colony, there was a lot of other people. So with the IGA, they're working with 13 federally recognized tribes. You should also consider that we have local indigenous people that have lived here for a very long time. So that was it. David, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's, I would like to maybe open some questions on some of that higher level stuff. If you have questions about the videos, if you watch them, or some of the work that Carmen's been doing, I'd like to give you a chance to talk about more about the open space piece of it.
Yeah.
Great. Are there any questions? I have a question.
Yeah.
So the intergovernmental agreement is just between Longmont, City of Boulder, County of Boulder, and it's about how you all will work together in engaging with the tribal nations.
Exactly. From that kind of partnership, we'll then be able to create, if you think of tribes that could identify from Sandstone all the way up to Estes Park, there's several jurisdictions in there. And so it will create that consistency and relationship that we are nurturing.
And what kind of activities will that entail?
Likely at the beginning, and David, tell me if I'm wrong, it's really identification of their trails, what existed, whether it was gathering of medicine or gathering of food or animals, and where did they come in the summer, did they come in the fall, that narrative. I know I had a conversation with the folks at Sandstone about telling the story of Sand Creek Massacre. There's one version right now, and that version was written by John Kaufman. So there should be a second version. So correcting that history will be part of that. Where it could go later is really dependent on the relationships and the different government entities and how they would work on that.
And I think this is gonna be a evolutionary process. It's not gonna quite happen all at once because there's pieces in there that City of Boulder is much further along than other entities as far as their collaboration and their work with the tribes. I think Longmont, some of the work we have done is further along in different aspects. I think City of Boulder probably more on the formal governmental sort of piece. I think Longmont more on the relationship piece and how we're building that. I will preface this with kind of a personal piece in this story too, that I can make that commitment that as we move through these conversations that having worked with Carmen and the tribes, that I just really think that Longmont has an obligation to do a better job of telling the story of our open space properties. So engaging the tribes, and when we talk about even from the naming of a property, I mean, it feels like, nothing was even really acknowledged before there was a ranch, Hall Ranch, Heil Ranch, White Ranch, Sandstone Ranch. I mean, it's just this idea that, before there was a ranch, there was really nothing. And how do we do a better job of talking about that story and bringing together? This is gonna be a hard part too. It's probably gonna take some time because there are conflicting stories of how things happen. I don't know personally that we are on have the ability to change that narrative immediately, but I think it's going to take time and dialogue and relationship building and trust to do a better job of telling that story and hopefully come up with something. But we can do a lot of things that really tell very factual pieces about who was here and what they did and why this land was important, and including the tribes in those conversations. That to me is a piece that in an open space background and do this for a long time, I think one feels very comfortable. It feels like the right thing to do is the direction that I think City Council has given us, and when I tell that narrative, it's pretty easy to tell to most anyone. As you read through this IGA, there'll be things that talk about co-management. There'll be things that talk about return of lands, and those will be conversations that I think can be hard for people to have, and it's going to be a community response to that. And I think for me, helping to carry that message is going to be working with our community and how you have those conversations where people are willing to listen and talk about this. And I think as the more we have those conversations, the closer we're getting to something that kind of helps heal this whole process. But again, making those tribes, those indigenous peoples, the people who use this area feel like they're part of that conversation no matter where they reside right now. So I think it's going to be a progress. And I think different entities and different groups are going to get there at different points. And I think the idea with the IG is that we all recognize that we're working in the same direction and trying to remove some of the bureaucracy within our entities so that we're not having to have groups go to one entity to ask for something, to another one, and then, again, like Carmen said, volunteering their time and using their time in this process that's been repeatedly kind of broken promises from these entities, and hopefully we do a better job of working with them to achieve that.
Yes, I know two cities has been identified as sister city. Right? One is Japan, one is Northern Colorado. There is a cultural exchange part of it.
Yes, so we have three sister cities.
Oh, three.
We have Ciudad Guzman in Mexico and Chino, Japan.
Oh, China.
And then we also have the Northern Arapaho. And we've done student exchanges as well. Last month in November, we had firefighters from Ciudad Guzman that came down and they did training with our firefighters, and then the city of Longmont donated a fire truck to them. So we surprised them with that. We've had youth exchange from each community with the Northern Arapaho because of the issues around boarding schools and the trust. We've handled the way that we bring in the students in a different way. The first time, all 10 of them stayed at my house. So, and then the second time we had them stay at the youth center. So we make adjustments that are culturally appropriate, and Sister Cities is a nonprofit. It's funded, some of its funding comes from City Council to shepherd these relationships. If you know about Sister Cities, I didn't know this till I accidentally got involved. It was started by Dwight Eisenhower as a way to repair relationships with countries that we had been in conflict with. And so when the mayor at the time, Mayor Bagley, said, "Do you know anything about the tribes that were here?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, told me about Sister Cities. I said, "Well, we've been at war with tribes, communities for about 500 years, so maybe it would be okay to start that relationship. And he's actually the one that really started having that conversation. So we do cultural exchanges. This last time we showed the documentary and then we had a panel discussion. We brought in folks from Northern Arapaho. The Saturday before, Northern Arapaho folks came down and they made fried bread, Indian tacos. They set up a teepee. They showed kids and their families at the youth center how to set up a teepee and how a traditional buffalo hide teepee would be made. So those are the kinds of things also that we think of with open space. Could we begin to bring people down to do education? There was up in Estes Park this summer, they held an Arapaho language summit where they brought elders and youth together because their language is disappearing, like in many tribes. Their language it will be fading away if we don't do something. So those are opportunities that also could be hosted or brought up by our open space partners.
That's great. Karen?
So, do we know yet what our goals are for the identification of, the resources, the historical use resources like medicine and animals and, pathways? Is it to restore access? Is it to just mark, honor?
I think those would be part of the conversations we really have. There's definitely been some asking in the past, and we've talked about those, but I think one of the things we've really heard about is our rules and regs do not allow for collecting. But one of the big pieces is the idea of can the tribes come back and collect traditional medicinal herbs or plants that they use for their rituals and their medicine. And is there a way that we can do that in kind of a blanket piece between the different municipalities? Say, yes, during these times or these windows or in certain circumstances, it's, again, going to be probably some give and take both ways. But again, try to reduce some of the barriers for some of those asks. Bringing kids down and having them on land, maybe in places that aren't open to the public, but through some sort of permitting process, say these are these times that these tribes can use these areas in certain ways that maybe we haven't historically looked at those lands being used that way. So I think it'd be part of the conversation.
I think the other thing to consider is you have a northern and southern Arapaho as well as a northern Cheyenne and southern Cheyenne. The government divided them and placed them on different reservations. But the southern folks travel up to the north for their ceremonies, their Sundance I believe it's in July, and other ceremonies that they have. And so wouldn't it be great to be able to stop home throughout Boulder County, whether that was to do education, gather, or to even camp out. We haven't quite gotten to what that could look like. Those potentials are all future conversations.
Great. I'm really glad to hear the city's thinking about things. We're thinking about very similar things in my work where we have protected lands and thinking about similar like access and common management and potential transfer back and all this.
It's a big conversation, and it starts out, I think, just having that trust to have the conversation to start with some of those pieces that we think are easy wins. And those are the places that, again, I think regardless of IGAs and stuff, you'll be seeing from me in this work group, signage and ideas of ways that we just do a better job to start talking about our properties in some other way than just the homesteading and ranch aspect of these properties.
I also will add that we've had Ernest House with Keystone Consultants.
Yes.
And he was in charge of the state Indian Commission, as well as, I think he's either Southern Ute or Mountain Ute.
Ute Mountain.
Ute Mountain. And so he's been helping us along with this conversation so that we have that representation. And I just found out that at Rocky Mountain National Park, their supervising ranger is a Northern Arapaho. So I'm going to try and reach out to him and see if we can get him engaged in this effort.
And that's really the other piece of this too, is as you're talking about all these different tribes and these groups that have used this area, are we talking to the right people? And are we in our little vacuum, even with everything Carmen brings to this, is pretty much a bureaucratic group of people having this conversation about what we need to do to help repair this and making sure that we are working with the tribes, those individuals, to make sure what we're trying to do meets their needs as well.
It's a very humbling effort. Any other questions? Jeff, did you have a question, or you just started?
This is the thinking post.
Great. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for sharing this, and
Yeah, we'll keep you
definitely,
posted.
hopefully, we can keep it in future agendas as appropriate.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thanks, Carmen.
Have a good evening.
Hi.
Good night.
Carmen, that's not your jacket.
Yes, it is.
Taylor, do you wanna
Yeah.
jump up
Do you
here?
need to
Yeah,
sit
you mind if
I can move out of the way.
whatever works? Yeah.
Do you need them here?
I wouldn't mind plugging this one. Works. Is that too complicated?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Where am I going?
Can I send you?
Well, I will see. There. Are you sure? Yeah. Is it on the L drive or something? You're not sure?
It's on SharePoint, yeah. You can go to prep.
And while they're doing that, just real quick, I'm not sure if everyone here has met Taylor in the past.
Hi, yeah, I'm Taylor. Volunteer coordinator.
Volunteer coordinator, she's been doing a phenomenal job. If you recall, we started this position, Danielle Cassidy was the one that really started rebuilding the volunteer program. She was a part-time in that position. I think she laid some really good foundation to getting some systems in place and really did a great job of building the foundation. Taylor came in and actually brought her skill set, her connection. She may talk a bit more about where she came from and all the connections she does have, but she has really been able to build that foundation. This thing's taken off with her going in. Again, today I was in a meeting, every time someone says we have a problem, we don't have funds, we don't have people, like, we'll do it with volunteers and Taylor will take care of it.
Yeah, Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yes.
There you go. And then documents, volunteer program. And let's see, scroll up. 2022 season. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, back. Annual impact reports. There we go. Yeah, I guess so. 2022 in the 2021 folder. Perfect.
And actually, she started here, I'm not sure how far along she got this, but that's one of the things when I get staff to do end of year reports. A lot of times those numbers are coming in until the end of the year, so this is probably a little bit of a rush for you to do this stuff. I appreciate you pulling things together quickly for us.
No, it was a good deadline for me. I'm happy to do it. Yeah, so I'm Taylor. A little background about me. I know I introduced myself about a year ago for my last volunteer impact report. I was relatively new then. But yeah, some background. I, right out of college, started doing volunteer coordination stuff with wildlands restoration volunteers. I have a degree in natural resource management from CU. So I worked with wildlands restoration volunteers, which is, we'll get into it a little bit, but they're a local nonprofit, the biggest in the state and the region for trails and restoration work. So I was their volunteer manager for 2 years, then I left and did wildland firefighting for a couple years, came back and did more volunteer management, restoration project coordination with wildlands restoration volunteers again. And then I spent the last year and a half before I started here for City of Boulder. I was their volunteer services field lead. So I was doing all of the field stuff, which was interesting because it was kind of the start of COVID time, so it was it turned into an unusual job. But I've been here since July 2021, so a year and a half almost. Yep, let's keep going. So,
I think we can do that.
yeah, it just looks good. So these are similar, it starts with similar slides to last year. I have not changed the program vision or program goals, so I'll just run through these really quickly. Connecting our community with our natural resources by protecting natural resources, respecting our natural environment, furthering our community identity, providing experiential opportunities, educating a new generation of stewards, protecting what we value, and promoting a sustainable and resilient Longmont today and into the future. These are, yeah, I've changed none of this. This is in the master plan for the program, and I see no need to
update these. I think they're great. Same with program goals: preserve and enhance our parks and natural resources, shape the identity of Longmont, provide connections, provide passive, low-impact recreation compatible with resource protection goals, and embrace public engagement. This is a neat picture. This is, I think, in September. Did a native seed collection at Ralph Price Reservoir up at Button Rock. Lots of happy faces. So, this year we wrapped up our big GoCo grant. This was a grant we did with Wildlands Restoration Volunteers, the same organization I used to work at. As I mentioned, they're a huge nonprofit for exactly the kind of thing that my program does. They do restoration work and habitat work and forestry work and all sorts of good stuff. And it happened to be in Longmont, which is really, really fortunate for us. The grant was through GoCo, so Great Outdoors Colorado. It's lottery funds, basically, that get directed and funneled towards outdoor work. It's a COVID relief grant. So it was our grant 2021-2022. It's about $219K. And in total, we did 43 projects and trainings through that grant with WRV. A major perk of working with Wildlands Restoration Volunteers, they have been around since 1999. They've been either in Boulder or Longmont that entire time, so they have a really deep well of volunteers. They're really well established. They have thousands of volunteers, and they run like 250 projects a year or something wild like that. So they're a really good resource for us to tap into as far as getting new faces and new people on board with what we're doing. But that grant's over now. So we'll get into what that's going to look like next year and going forward. But we have a lot of money the past couple of years that we're going to be missing next year and following year. So this is a picture from a plant watering project at McIntosh Lake sometime this summer. I can't quite remember. Nice selfie close-up of me. Event types. So a lot of this is stuff we've been doing for years. Citizen science stuff. So we did some macroinvertebrate data collection, also some species monitoring, that kind of thing. Fence construction and deconstruction in a variety of places. Landscape beds, mulching projects. So this is primarily what Parks uses the volunteer program for, is mulching landscape beds, because it is something that takes staff, potentially weeks to cover a park, and a good volunteer group can knock it out in a few hours. Prairie dog barrier, we just did one of those this year, but little barrier construction, beaver tree painting, more landscape bed renewal, noxious weed eradication, restoration, plantings, and maintenance, seed cleaning and seed collection. And we'll use those seeds in future restoration projects. Shrub and tree plantings, trash cleanups, trail building, seeding projects, and tool maintenance. This is a trail project up on Sleepy Line Trail at Button Rock. We did a lot of work up there this year. Other program we do, educational classes, kickoff events and signups, trainings, and the volunteer appreciation event at the end of the year. This is citizen science phenology walk training. So this is a new program we had this year, where we put together what's called a phenology trail at Rogers Grove, and we located a few different plant species, and we had a group of volunteers go back regularly, week after week, and take phenology data, or like seasonal data for each of those plants, and tell us when there was bud burst and when the leaves fell off, things like that. And then they submit their data, and it goes into a big national database that tracks trends throughout the country. And tens of thousands of volunteers contribute to that nationwide effort. So it's cool data to have nationwide, and it's also great data for our open space or ecosystem management staff to have. So it tells us kind of exactly what's going on right here in town. And then on the right, we have the community bird walk. These are some educational events we did this year. I think we did 5 or 6. And we just go out for an hour and a half in the morning. It's a cool perk for volunteers. We get our wildlife staff to come out and we go to different open space locations each time and we teach them how to bird. We see what we see. We loan out scopes and we loan out binoculars and it's a neat opportunity. People, they filled every single time. So we hope to do more of that next year. Ongoing programs. So these are, rather than like single day events, one-time events, these are the programs we have that we run on more of a shift basis. So people come week after week or month after month to contribute to these programs. Rose gardeners, breeding bird monitors, raptor monitors, the Adopt a Park, Clean Up, Green Up, Keep Longmont Beautiful program. Those are all sort of part of basically a trash cleanup effort. Trail ambassadors, park and trail renewal, photographers, and citizen science, which is that phenology walk. The asterisks are for trail ambassadors and citizen science because those were new this year. So we added those programs because the opportunity presented itself in different ways. And so we ran sort of small pilot programs for each of those this year. This is Elisa she's one of our park staffs at Roosevelt. She works at the Rose Garden. She kind of runs the ship at the Rose Garden. So this is at a mulching event in the spring. She was helping stage mulch as we were getting going. And that's actually one really great thing we did this year is we sort of figured out how to work. I figured out how to work with staff, park staff, open space staff. We built better relationships and they sort of learned how to better work with volunteers and how to help me run volunteer events. So that's something we made a lot of progress with this year. It's just getting better organized, getting everyone on staff on the same page with volunteers. All right, this is the interesting stuff. Impact metrics. So here's what we did this year, or some of what we did this year. A little over 3,000 linear feet of trail maintained, 675 linear feet of new trail or rerouted trail, 330 linear feet of closed trail, 225 cubic yards of mulch in landscape beds. It's hard to visualize that. It's a lot. It's like maybe like a dozen dump trucks or something. It's a lot of mulch. 1,350 gallons of trash removed. I think that's a conservative figure. It's hard to sort of measure gallons of trash, but something around there. Rose Garden, 18 ongoing volunteers, 260 volunteer hours. Both of those numbers are a little bit up from last year, but I don't really see them changing. We're taking good care of the Rose Garden. We don't need 50 volunteers there. Ecological restoration, 730 plugs and trees planted, 405 feet of fencing built, 400 feet of fencing removed, 4,300 gallons of water fed to native shrubs and trees, 65 acres of invasive species removal, 298 acres of habitat benefited, 7 species of seed collected for future restoration, and volunteer surveys, 99% satisfied or very satisfied. I had one unsatisfied, and it was an educational program run by an external party, and frankly, it was unsatisfying. So it was some fair feedback. This is from a Prairie Dog Area event at Blue Skies Park we did this year. Wildlife monitoring, breeding bird survey. This is a year-round program, so this is just year-to-date stats. They'll look a little bit different by the time we hit the end of the year, but not too much. Sorry, that first bullet point is a little bit unnecessary. But we did 38 site visits, 50 volunteers, 154 volunteer hours, and 4 properties monitored. Raptor monitoring, that's a much bigger effort. That goes throughout the summer, and it's a bigger group. So we did 304 site visits, 16 volunteers, 164 volunteer hours. We monitored 6 raptor species, monitored 28 nests, and worked on 12 open spaces, nature areas, and other areas within city limits, and 98% success rate for nests. Oh, and this is a neat picture. We have one raptor monitor. We have a couple that take really beautiful pictures, but this guy in particular takes incredible pictures, which is really cool. Trail Ambassador Pilot Program. So this is, again, one of our new programs. We had some volunteers request this program, so we gave it a try. 55 site visits, 6 volunteers. Actually, you know what, let me explain this program a little bit. I wrote about it in here. So yeah, new program, it's a pilot version, so it's small. We kept it small so that we could learn some lessons without hopefully having too much of an impact in either direction. So we did a training with myself and with Bryce. He's the lead ranger out at Union. And we taught them how to have positive, welcoming, helpful interactions with members of the public. And then we sent them to parks and greenways. And we sent them, we stocked them with backpacks that had like doggy bags and leashes, spare leashes, bike repair kits, Band-Aids, spare water bottles, trail maps, just kind of helpful things. And they collected visitor data, like how many dogs they saw, how many rule violations they saw, how many bicyclists they saw, what parks amenities they were using and not using. And they reported maintenance issues that they came across in parks as well. Which is really helpful because staff are limited, they can't have eyes everywhere. So having some extra eyes in our parks and greenways is really helpful. We have a feedback season review meeting tomorrow. I wish we'd had it before this so I could tell you what our trail ambassadors thought of the program. Hopefully they enjoyed it. But that will their feedback will sort of guide what we do next year, whether we want to keep it small or expand, or if they hated it and maybe we cut the program entirely. We'll see. But they had a big impact as far as I'm concerned. So those 6 volunteers contacted 186 people in total. You can see most of it was visitor hospitality, so just welcoming people, talking to people, asking what they're doing with their parks, how they're using the parks. And then 20 of them were visitor assistants. So, Band-Aids or helping fix a bike tire, whatever. 5 other, I don't know what those are. 43 violations observed. And in our report, they've detailed exactly what those violations were, so we can see at any given park, if there's a pattern, we're seeing a lot of people or a lot of dogs off leash in one particular area that can potentially guide us to put a sign up in that location, that kind of thing. 37 maintenance concerns reported, which then went to park staff so that they could take a look. 21 locations visited throughout the city. So that's the gist for our Trail Ambassador program. I will keep you guys in the loop on feedback from volunteers. We'll see how they liked it and what changes they might have for next season. The other new one, I described a little bit, Citizen Scientist, the phenology walk out at Rogers Grove, some species that they monitored for phenology data. And that's a year-round program, so that's not just through the warm months. We want winter data as well. So 42 site visits, 5 volunteers, 96 volunteer hours, 6 plants and 5 animals regularly monitored. And yeah, that's happening right now. So we are going to do a winter feedback session at some point. We're going to wait till after the holidays. We already have folks who are, we have 2 of those volunteers have COVID right now, and so that we get through the holidays before we met in person. And this is a picture from, these are both pictures from Trail Ambassadors. So this is one of the contacts that one of ours had with a guy with a really big fish. I don't actually know where that was, but
I was just gonna ask.
it's a big fish.
Remind me not to swim there.
What?
Remind me not
Yeah.
to swim there.
So yeah, this is the big slide. So this shows our numbers over the past few years. 2020 is on there. It's obviously a little bit of an outlier. That was like prime COVID time, and also, a part-time volunteer coordinator. So things look a little bit different. But really, I'm using 2021 as our baseline. And you can see we had some big increases from 2021. So we went from 44 volunteer events to 70 volunteer events, which is a 59% increase. From 708 volunteers to a little over 1,000 for a 49% increase. about the same number of community partners, 3,418 service hours to 4,645, which is what, a 36% increase. And value of volunteer time increased 42%. So we had some really good numbers this year. I'll get into that a little bit on the next slide, or I guess in a few slides. But really, I think with these numbers, they're awesome. They're, I think, what the sort of carrying capacity of our program is right now. We were able to accomplish all of the goals that we had set out for in the spring, and then we sort of moved the goalposts, and we were able to accomplish almost all our project goals once we moved those goalposts. So we got a lot of work done. I think my understanding is that Parks and Open Space, Natural Resource staff are really happy with what the volunteer program was able to do this year. However, this is sort of, we hit our max. This is, I think, right now with the resources we have, and by resources, in this case, really, I mean one staff member. That's about as much as I can do. These are just some more pictures. I don't need to explain every one of them, but there's some cool, we did some cool stuff. This is a fence we built at Dickens Farm Nature Area. We're gonna try to, this area's been totally trampled, so we'll try to restore it. Invasive species removal, just had a seed collection. The water was really flowing, so we got a cool picture. Another seed collection, some more raptors. Beaver tree painting. This is rose garden, with pruning, doing cutback of the roses. Some trail work stuff, watering out at Macintosh. A few pictures from some of our planting projects at Macintosh Lake. Got a tree hugger here. Happy volunteers, check-in process, some trash collection with a very cute family. And there are a lot more cool pictures where that came from. If you want another 1,000 pictures, just let me know. Lessons learned 2022. So, July and August, it's been this way for 5 years, and it's time to sort of acknowledge that it's more than just a one-time thing. They're too hot for most outdoor events. People do not want to be outside when it's 95 degrees out. And these days, it is consistently 95 degrees out. I sort of planned for it this year, and I did sort of a light load of projects. And even those were really hard to recruit for. So next year, I'm going to plan for it even more, and really just do indoor stuff, educational stuff, because people really do not want to volunteer their time to do outdoor labor when it's super hot out. And if we end up with a cool July and August, great, we'll plug in some more projects, but something to plan for next year. I went over this a little bit. We hit current program carrying capacity for events and those ongoing opportunities. That's in my opinion. And at this time, we don't have program resources to expand further. That means there's just me. And without GoCo funding, now that that grant is complete, at this time, we don't have funding to do more events next year than what we've been able to do. And in fact, we don't have funding to do all of the events that we did this year. So, and I'll get into this on the next page, but one of the goals for next year is going to be to find some more funding. Recruitment. One lesson learned for me, program promotion is a lot more successful than asking for volunteer help. So I've been working with comms on this. We're putting together a cool comms plan for next year. Just like getting folks excited about the stuff we're doing, putting together videos and interviews with volunteers, cool before and after pictures, that kind of thing has proven to be a lot more successful than just posting saying, hey, we need help with this project. So that's something we'll be doing a little bit more of next year. And hopefully we'll be more visible in that way as well. Successful new interagency volunteer coordinator collaboration effort. Kind of a mouthful. Basically, I worked with an old colleague of mine at City of Boulder, Open Space and Mountain Parks, and we put together a group of volunteer coordinators from a number of local agencies. So we've got several folks from Boulder County, we've got Open Space and Mountain Parks. At Boulder, we've got Boulder Parks and Rec, and we have City of Louisville, myself. And we get together quarterly and we're able to sort of task volunteers. Like if I have a project that, or I have volunteers that I can't find a project for, I'll send them over to them. Or like, for example, we have a lot of restoration work to do in the coming years at Button Rock, and we do not have enough land to connect or to collect enough native seed to do that work at Button Rock. So we'll be working, sorry, I can't breathe in that thing. So we'll be working with Boulder County and City of Boulder and doing some seed collections on their properties to gather enough seed so we can do that restoration work. So that's been a cool new thing that we're doing. We are hitting high project and volunteer numbers, which means that in some cases, in my opinion, program development, capacity building, community building, some of that stuff suffers because I'm in the field. I was averaging 3 days a week in the field every week, which means I didn't have enough time, in my opinion, for really solid recruitment work, really solid, like reaching out, trying to do capacity building stuff, volunteer appreciation stuff, responding to volunteers. I tried to respond within a day, and I wasn't able to do that because I was in the field so much. So some of those sort of behind the scenes pieces that I think are really important to making a program feel like it's really, really well organized and well done and the community is really solid. I wasn't able to do all of those pieces, but we hit some really good numbers. So trying to find, I think, in every program there's a balance between, any number of things. I think next year I'd like to bring the balance back a little bit from doing as many projects as possible and bring it back towards building community and building some more capacity into the program. So I'd like to move that back a little bit. We are still gathering volunteer feedback from the new programs, as I mentioned, so I don't have a ton of info there. 2023 and beyond. So current staff resources, volunteer program, cannot support expanded programs or an increase in projects. We're looking into a possible seasonal employee in 2023. Has not been approved by City Council yet, but I have my fingers crossed. That would be huge for the program. It would mean that ideally with the right person in there, they could do some of the field work, and I could be behind the scenes doing a little bit more recruitment and, again, the capacity building stuff. So it would give us space to do everything I wanted for the program. And find funding, because that's going to be a significant piece. Because GoCo is complete, so we need additional funding in 2023. Greater focus on community building and program capacity building. Gone over that. Potential expansion of trail ambassador programs and gardener programs. So right now we run the Rose Gardener program. We have 2 native pollinator demo gardens coming in, one at Rogers Grove, one at the Visitor Center at Sandstone. And I'd like to run native garden programs in the same way we run our Rose Garden program. We also have a greenhouse that is currently being built out back, or maybe is practically done.
Almost done.
Okay, we're getting there. And we'll have volunteers help maintain some of our plants in the greenhouse as well. So those are some new ongoing things that are coming up. And then this is sort of insider information, kind of. Thor Nature Experience is, they're in Boulder, and it's a nonprofit group, and they do a lot of programming with youth. And there's something called Nature Kids Lafayette, and they're coming up with Nature Kids Longmont in the coming year or two. And I've been, the person who's going to be starting that up is an old colleague of mine, and we're hoping to get a consistent partnership with youth from that program and the work we did here at Longmont. So that's a pretty cool thing that's coming up because I would love to engage more youth, and especially if it's a consistent group of folks that come back week after week. I think that would be a pretty cool opportunity for us and for them. And I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you. And if we have questions, of course, yeah.
Any questions?
board members. Karen?
Who's your friend at Future Kids Longmont?
New employee there, Rachel Brett.
Oh, well, Rachel Brett has been, she's not new. Okay. good,
New to
Okay,
Thorn, not
okay.
new in,
Okay, I've worked
Yeah.
with Rachel for the last
Yeah.
6-7 years. Okay.
Rachel's been at WRB for, 5, 6,
Okay,
7 years.
cool.
Yeah, Karen?
You said a seasonal employee,
Yeah.
but not July and August. What is the season for this sort of
Oh,
thing?
so yeah, our volunteer season it starts late March-ish, depending on snow and all that. It extends through October, sometimes into November a little bit.
Without that spot in the middle there.
Yeah, and then that chunk in the middle.
Okay, that would be my guess. I didn't know if it was only spring or only fall.
Sure,
If that's
yeah.
what you meant. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Do you mind if I add a little bit
Yeah.
to that?
Go ahead.
Nice job, and I just wanted to hit on a couple of those points. One was that TUMP position that we do have some funds that we're looking at converting, because I think you heard from Taylor, for her to get more time out of the field to get that support where she can work on those grants and work on dollars to kind of leverage that, I think is a better use of her time. So we really are trying to push that. And in those down seasons, it's time where they can start accumulating numbers and do some of these number crunching and work on stuff. So I don't have any problem with the idea that there's work for them to do up there. And they do a lot of coordination with these projects with the parks and open space staff and what it really takes to go there and do it. So it's not just go to a beaver project. There's a lot of kind of coordinating that they really do. The other piece that I was surprised Eric didn't ask, and I saw it, your wildlife monitors. I know the volunteers and are already taking on a lot of work. Is there opportunities for kids to kind of partner with some of these individuals to?
Yeah, I think so. As far as, there's only so many nests in the city, and we have them currently all covered with volunteers. And we try to give folks who have volunteered with us in years past doing raptor monitoring first go at those nests, and for the most part, most people come back. So, however, I do think there's an opportunity for shadowing or for like educational
Right.
events. I think that's probably where the greatest opportunity is shadowing or working directly with our wildlife staff and doing some educational stuff in the field. Teaching kids how to monitor nests, and we can even, we can always double up on nests. So if we do have a youth group who wants to go out and take over 3 nests, even if we have volunteers who are also monitoring those nests, there's no reason for an educational, we can't throw in an educational component where youth also monitor those nests.
Great. I was just thinking about our future volunteers out there that really can
Yeah,
start
I was
doing
gonna
this.
ask that same thing, because I'd love to do something like that with my son.
Is this publicly available data?
Sorry?
Is this publicly available data?
It is not yet, but it will be. It'll be on our website, and I'm handing it over to the comms team next week, and we'll figure out where we'll post it, but it will be soon.
Are you raptor monitoring on private land as well? Like when we know, I mean, I'm just thinking of the next door neighbors had the giant, like, red-tailed hawk nest.
Right.
That basically the whole neighborhood was monitoring already.
Right.
Yeah.
My understanding is yes. If we can monitor from a safe place and a place that's far enough away from the nest, but close enough that we can see what's going on in it with the scope or binoculars. Yes, we are monitoring, and I believe the wildlife staff. I think they connect with those.
They really try to, for the fact that when we do land use stuff, a lot of this stuff is they're required to do your natural resource and wildlife surveys, and a lot of times they look at the site they're on. And we know sometimes just beyond that property line, there's nests. We don't go trespassing on people's private property, but those nests are very visible. A lot of times we can kind of ground truth things just by staying on city properties or right of ways and getting an idea of those without having to go onto those private properties. So we don't go on private properties and monitor per se, but we do have the opportunity to do that from a little far. The last thing I'd like to talk about this program is the fact that you talk about seed collection and restoration work. Some of this stuff, this is a full circle sort of piece that it is really hard for Steve in these projects to find the right native seed varieties, plant plugs and stuff like that from growers in areas when we're doing restoration work. to have the ability to have people collecting the seeds, growing out the seeds, and then planting the seeds in our projects. This is I just think a wonderful opportunity for us to kind of create a kind of full circle use of our volunteers and our volunteer resources, which goes back to my last point is, I often get the question, are these just feel-good projects, or do they really add value? And it is work that I would say how often we dump trucks full of mulch that Timber and his staff are always at the end of the year saying, we just couldn't get to it. And it's stuff that really is on people's work project that wouldn't probably get done. And it definitely benefits those beds, those shrubs, water conservation, those plants by having the mulch out there. So this is all from prairie dog fencing to mulching. They're projects that not only engage the community, but is work the city really needs to get done. So thank you.
Great, thanks. Congratulations on a great year.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions, or are we ready to move? All right, thanks for coming, Taylor. Thank you guys. Okay, our next agenda item is to get an update on the recreation, library, culture funding initiative. I think Jeff's gonna give us an update on the recent conversation at City Council, and then hopefully you all saw there were 3 questions for you all to consider in the packet. And I would like to make sure we kind of just go around and give everyone a chance to answer each of those questions after Jeff gives his update. So, because it's a pretty important opportunity for us to get our feedback in at this point. So, Jeff?
Thank you. So on November 29th, City Manager presented to Council a list of projects that could be included in a library, recreation, and culture tax in November of next year. Did everybody get a chance to see the numbers? So I won't take too much time going over that because I think the 3 questions are most important. But he presented $244,700,000 worth of projects. Specifically, that's hard to say.
That's a big number.
For recreation and parks, that included renovation of Centennial Pool, completion of Dry Creek Community Park, Montgomery Farms, construction, a new recreation center, Union Master Plan implementation, and some updating of the existing recreation center. And then in your packet, it also talks about operating dollars and what it would cost each year to operate that. He proposed to them a combination of ways to fund the projects, that being both with property tax and with sales tax. Namely that the property tax would fund the capital side of it, or the construction, and the sales tax would provide the ongoing operation for the facilities. Again, this is all conceptual. Council did not make any decisions. Their guidance was to have staff start to go out to the public and get input on what the public thinks should be included in the tax that would be asked. So any questions on kind of where we're at with the project? And again, that's real quick, but really want to make sure we have time for the 3 questions to get your input. Yeah, Nathan.
I just want to make sure I understand the projects. This is a la carte. It's not like all both together.
It will be, we believe, a la carte.
Okay.
The only ones that might be combined is the Parks and Recreation, because we have there's a standard within the state of those projects being together, but it's our belief that each question would be asked individually. So museum, Parks Rec, performing arts, and library.
Okay, that makes sense. I was worried that there's be one big, giant, scary number.
Well, that I think the intent may be to do outreach and try to build public support for the package.
Yes.
And so, get like the Parks and Rec community and the museum community and the library community all together to kind of advocate for.
Because we don't want to get it into a position where I'm not gonna vote for the museum if I don't get a new rec center and vice versa kind of thing. So a unified front, I think, is very important.
Can you remind me, what did we have on the ballot, or what was the number amount on the ballot 3 years ago for the pool and ice in particular? Because 64 million for the rec center seemed like a big number to me, but I couldn't remember.
I think it was 45
Okay.
million before.
Okay.
And that's
64
based
million
on,
is bigger.
yes, it is, but the cost of,
No, I get it, I'm just making sure I was grounded
Yeah.
correctly.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
I think I'm about to restate exactly what you all just said, but I feel like in the summer when we heard this pitched originally, wasn't the idea that it was gonna be a one package deal and they were gonna try to get people to vote on one thing? As opposed to the a la carte idea? Did something change?
well, ideally, that's how we want to do it. We are working with legal staff from the state that helps give guidance, and the initial guidance is that you're not allowed to group the projects, that they would have to be voted on individually, which was the same thing that happened in 2018 when we went to an election that had a question about golf, had a question about the civic center, and a question about the fire department. And initially, we wanted to bunch those together, but it wasn't allowed.
But it was allowed in 2000, when we did the rec
Yes.
center, museum,
In-
and senior center together?
99.
Because look, 99, that was together at the
Yeah,
time.
it was a, yeah.
Gotcha.
So I guess I'm trying to clarify, do we imagine it's gonna say something like ballot initiative 19A is $64 million for the rec center, and then it's gonna just be a laundry list and people are gonna check yes or no on every project?
I believe so. There, I mean, that's.
That's fine, I
down the
just
road,
in my
but-
brain imagined we were doing the opposite from the
Yeah.
last time that we talked about it.
Well, but I wonder, I mean, because usually ballot, I mean, I'm not an expert in ballot legal language, but usually it's like if they have something, if they're connected. So you might have like the revamp of Centennial Pool and the new rec center and the update of the old rec center. Like there might be a package of recreation facilities
I would,
that would be one piece. And then like a library that would be one piece and then a museum. So I
That's
think
gonna be
all
like
the, so it wouldn't be
$85
like
million
Centennial
Parks
and the
and
rec
Rec
center and, yeah.
thereabouts, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Again,
That's
that's
a big
based
thing.
on whatever the community's interested in.
But you know where there was I don't remember what page it was on, but there was a part about the mill levy going up from like, I'm making up numbers, 15 to 30 or something
Yes.
like that. That number won't be able to be stated that way if it's actually based on each question, eh? So,
So in the council communication, it did share how much mill levy or sales tax would need to go up by each item.
okay,
So that
okay.
has been calculated.
And so you now, staff has direction to begin planning for public outreach around this package? Or like,
Yes.
can you plan and begin implementing? Or how much direction do you feel like you have?
Oh, not a lot. I think we as a committee need to get back together again and develop a plan. But one of the things that you and I and David had talked about is starting to get feedback on the public process and how we do that outreach, because the clock's really ticking, and by August, council will need to determine whether they're gonna put this on the ballot or not. So we need to do everything in our power to start the process so that we can get moving.
Really, they would decide before August.
Yeah, I think they have to, but that's the latest that they can put something on the ballot.
Okay. So what we had hoped when we sort of planned for the discussion for this meeting is that this would be an opportunity for all of us to share thoughts on, you know, if there are particular amenities related to the rec center, recreation facilities that you really feel should be included in the community scoping, and then if there's any particular requests or guidance around how the outreach is conducted. we wanted to be able to get that thinking now, so it could be incorporated to the extent that it can be early in the planning. So if there's no other background questions, maybe we could just go to the first question, which is what amenities should be considered to be included in a new recreation center? I'm happy to just like go down the line. Jeff, do you want to start? And then we'll just go.
To me, an indoor and an outdoor pool, I mean, the pool area, I think we've already said something is oldish, so I would definitely say indoor and outdoor pool. And I think Longmont's current skateboard infrastructure is very lacking. If you don't have a car, you can't use it really. Samsung doesn't exist for most kids if they don't have a ride. So it's something that you can get to, and hopefully a good one.
Are you thinking indoor
I don't know,
or
maybe you.
outdoor?
I'm sorry?
Outdoor?
Skateboarding should, yes, be outdoor.
Well, there is indoor.
Yeah, sure, that would be great. I'm just not trying to invent new things that.
Great, okay,
That's my whole list.
great. Manoj?
Is it depend on this board to decide? We're just getting our
We just get to
opinions.
provide input, yeah.
Okay, the swimming is in great demand in the city, and we definitely need indoor swimming pool.
Yeah.
I agree on swimming, but I would also, I'm not sure what does staff have in mind by picking $64 million? That already
Well, that destroys
brackets.
this conversation if I tell you what I
Well,
want.
no, but I mean, otherwise, we could name 53 things and it's $64 billion, right? I mean, somehow you had some model of a recreation center in Thornton that we're matching, or in wherever, that kind of thing.
So I would say.
I mean, a gym, a pool, we could duplicate our current rec center, which I think would be a waste. For example, I don't think we need another kid pool, but I would need numbers to say, oh, it's vastly oversubscribed. But I hear people you see in Times Call, oh, there's not enough gym space. We had a guy here last week who was complaining, or last month, who complained that the volleyball folks, there wasn't enough space in the gym, and that and there's not enough space for swimming laps versus, having a master's versus having swim lessons. So it's hard to judge. My wish list is huge, but I think we should be guided more by demand outside
Well,
this.
what they're gonna do is present options and gauge demand.
Okay.
So you should share what you think are the most important options to be vetted by the public.
I think a lap pool and an ice rink, but we tried that. But I still think those two things we don't have an ice rink and we need more lap pool. Especially if Centennial's gonna go away. And that seemed to be part of the deal here was that Centennial was going away. So.
But do we need a lap pool? It's just a question, would the school district building the pool?
I don't know, that's what you're supposed to tell me, you're the staff member who has all those numbers.
They already did it, so.
That's what the public is gonna tell us.
Yeah.
See, then we're saying you need to ask the public about that pool.
Right.
Does the public have access to Silver Creek's pool now?
No.
Nope.
So how can, I don't see
No,
how
but
that makes
the
anything.
district has changed its mind a little bit.
All it does is take the district swim teams out of the lanes that the public use.
Which that's
It's helpful.
helpful.
But it's not enough.
Is there a plan for when the Quail, if the Quail Rec Center got updated, to update the children's part of the pool? Because I mean, I think it's long in the tooth at this point, isn't it, a little bit?
We're not gonna add any capacity
Right.
as far as square footage.
Right.
But what we'd like to do is update the slide area, the kiddie play area in there. That again wouldn't add capacity, but it would add a new feature that would draw more people.
Sure.
And that would be more fun for the kids
Right.
as well.
Well, back to my original point, we got a lot of positive feedback from folks about an ice rink and a pool. In particular, a lot of folks wanted a 50-meter pool, but realistically, that can't happen. I mean, we already went down that road and failed. So I would say that's silly to build a humongous pool. But an ice rink, I think, would be a big boon to a lot of folks. But that's a huge number price-wise, we all know that, so tricky.
Yeah.
Scott?
I'm gonna kind of repeat a lot of the same things. It's just that
Right.
it's that Centennial comes offline, obviously take up that capacity, but even there, we have more demand than the capacity we already have. So lanes, I think on the pool side, or ability to do lessons, I think is a big part that's there. A lot of the other stuff that's there in the current rec center repeat. I think there's just an overall need, whether it's court space or gym space or whatever. That's why we need another rec center. Whether each one of us uses it or not. I'm not the pickleball player, but someone's gonna yell and scream, and we've heard it a million times that if the private market, which there doesn't seem to be money for it, because I personally did 2 market studies now for companies, to have something that's not court, not basketball court, pickleball facility, indoor, outdoor, but indoor.
Somebody was telling us that Loveland just opened its indoor.
Yeah.
pickleball.
Indoor has one. Loveland has one now too. But it's just for the most part, the ones that are opening are people who can't rent their facilities, and so those property owners are going to, basically white label their building, they put down the courts, and then they run with it. So like the one that's in Westminster is like that. The guy's losing money on it, but because there's just not enough density of people.
Like a Safeway up in 17th and Pace is vacant.
It's, if you want to pay for 60,000 square feet, there's a lot of pickleball. Yeah. So, and if somebody came in, to split it or something, you needed 25,000 square foot space would be great. But it's a market of people who are price conscious, and as soon as it's nice outside, we'll play for free. So it's a tough market to beat. But right now, Longmont's group, which is over 1,000 people now, in that meetup, they are screaming every time the weather hits 40 degrees or it rains or snows. They're all cursing out the city. That we're not proactive. Yeah, exactly. So I'm just like, calm down, people. Because I told them a bunch of times, like, what would you pay for a private place? And basically comes back with not enough. And so that's why there aren't more private spots. It has to be public private.
And the LAC is losing money left and right, and keeping tennis players in the same bunch.
Right. So not to take it over pickleball, but that sort of thing. You don't make money on skate parks either. So it's those type of things that the city has to provide because the market can't provide some of that stuff. The other side on pool, Sunset is chaos, obviously, during the middle of summer, and Sunset like pool somewhere else in the city would be super fantastic for the kids to go to. My only question overall, which we didn't quite get to, the list, is how does this happen if we place a rec center somewhere? Would it affect development of one or two of these other places that are on this list? Right.
Well, Harold in his.
He said Dry Creek.
He said Dry Creek. That was.
That's his spot.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's Dry Creek, $59 million plus $64 million for a rec center? Isn't it?
Well, Dry Creek is supposed to be expanded to a second phase. Is that what you're talking about? And
whatever that
Yeah,
is.
the numbers listed for Dry Creek are incorrect.
Oh, okay, because there's
So,
such a ginormous number for open space.
we, as a part of our next meeting, need to talk about the numbers and how they were further developed than what we presented.
Okay.
That's a piece too. We talked about some of the Herald's desire to have these 8 parks done in 5 years, with some work that Steve has been working on. And this all kind of play a little bit with each other too. So again, we had some questions about Dry Creek and Montgomery Farms on there. Montgomery Farm is really on our list because if it ended up with a rec center there, we definitely would be then trying to coordinate the building of that park with that rec center too. So we definitely have some clarification and as you talk about too, some pencil sharpening of those numbers too.
Great, okay. Erin?
Well, echoing what Jeff, what a few people said, outdoor pool and indoor pool. Outdoor pool. Had one when I was a kid that I thought was the coolest thing, that you could swim outdoors and swimming. Like you would swim up through the tunnel to get to the outdoor part, and you'd swim out like it'd be snowing, and you'd swim out of like in Missouri. It was like the coolest thing. Yeah, for ideas, giving you ideas, not just staying conventional on here. I want bus access. I want bus and bike access really big, because I don't want it to be a parking lot, and I don't want us to be using our precious land for parking as much. And I'm not sure what our numbers are in climbing, but everybody I know in south of here, the climbing gyms are just so packed. South of here, like Lafayette, Louisville, Boulder, just so packed, and more climbing facilities, especially as we get more young adults moving in. Not sure exactly what the amenities are going to be offered in the museum, library sphere, but if the museum doesn't get their kitchen, we need kitchen space. People want to do cooking classes. There are no places to do cooking classes in this area at all. We need maker spaces. Yeah. Hey, it's Great British Bake Off, Great Longmont Bake Off. I'll be a judge. Thanks. I just want to eat the cookies. And like multi-generational crafting areas would be good. Crochet groups, like different people to come in. There's a lot of group meeting spaces not there. Youth meeting space, and not like every place has like a meeting. I'm not disparaging this meeting space, but we can't see each other, and it's not in a circle. And so kind of go back to the 70s and have like places where people can meet and have conversations and things like that, because the library has these bookshelves in the middle of, like if you're trying to meet with 4 people or whatever, and I think that's a big thing. And those could be the new library, they could be the new museum, but we got to coordinate with those, because it's all recreation, it's all learning, and I think those are all going to be. And then, back to the pool, somebody mentioned it, but here's, like, as a former 20-year swim teacher, designated lessons, like a lesson space for swimming that was designed by instructors, because you need certain depths and you need kids to be able to kind of hop off stuff and things like that. And a decent temperature for kids really makes them learn exponentially better. When the temperature would go up, your kids put their faces in the water and then they swim. So yeah, that's a long list. Sorry, yeah.
So this is it.
Can I ask you a question related to what she just asked? Is there a maker space in any of the City of Longmont infrastructure or the Arts District? Does that exist anywhere? Other than like the Tinkermill?
No, but that would be something that the library would consider
As part of their
to do
expansion.
there.
Okay.
Oh, I think the museum had kind of considered a little bit of a maker space as well.
That's going to be the interesting part of this. Like, once you get the community feedback on the amenities, like which amenities go where.
The museum is further ahead than all of us, because they do have a design with what their expansion would look like. But the rec center and the branch library are a clean slate.
And was the branch library going to be part of the rec center or
Yeah.
part of the revamp of
It
Centennial?
would be part of the new rec center.
Okay.
Yeah. So this question was good for me, interesting for me to answer, because I'm I'm not a frequent user of the current rec center. It's not my go-to spot. But we're thinking through this, and I thought of like, okay, who is the recreation center most valuable for our community? Like, who's who has the biggest impact by having this. And I really think that it probably comes down to teenagers and young adults. In my mind, right, like having a safe place for teenagers to go after school, to hang out, that's like pretty important. So as, putting myself in the shoes of a teenager coming into a rec center after school, what kind of programming would I want to have there? And it's probably a lot of boring stuff. It's probably like foosball and like ping pong tables, right? Like just places to hang out and talk with other teenagers, right? So that's kind of where my brain went. And then maybe also some programming too, of like, I don't know, team sports of sorts that are more intramural like that and easy to access. So that's kind of where my brain went.
Well, I had a lot of the things people have said. I mean, I do think we need to scope the full range of swimming, so recreational, lab, indoor, outdoor. I think we really need to get a sense of what is needed. I also think we need to continue to scope the ice sheet, like a recreational indoor ice sheet of some sort, until we have one. We need to keep asking about opportunities. And I do think there are a range. I've seen many different iterations of the way those things are handled, anywhere from old sort of military facilities that are converted to really high-end facilities that have like restaurants in them, so the whole range. I'm intrigued by the idea of like dedicated sports courts. It was kind of interesting when we heard from the gentleman at the meeting last time about the conflicts, and I've been working out at the rec center more lately as it's gotten colder, and definitely when there's always lots of people on the basketball courts and the volleyball, and so I wonder if people would be interested in having dedicated, like, this is where the basketball courts are, these are volleyball courts, I think it's worth looking into. And then I had similar questions about community meeting space, whether that was something people wanted to be able to have. Various iterations of that, and I also wondered about climbing. Whether I never see anyone on a climbing wall at the rec center, but I know there is a big climbing community. Oh, that's why. Okay.
Phew.
Why is it
you don't see anybody.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to hire staff.
LCC pays better. That's why.
Yeah.
And there is
And
the
same with
climbing
babysitting.
collective or whatever.
Yeah,
So I don't know what the demand is, but I think it's worth asking.
They're building a giant.
Are
Pretty
they?
massive.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so maybe we don't need to duplicate.
But I don't know, but like I can't afford to go to, I mean, seriously, I can't go from one visit to the Longmont Climbing Collective. Like, I'm not in that bracket.
Yeah. Never been. I don't know.
You can't afford it.
Yeah.
You work for a nonprofit, you either, and you have a family. Like, you can't have both. You can work for a nonprofit or have a family, but you can't have both and go. So pricey.
Okay, so that's, I think, a good list. Does it resonate with kind of what you were thinking?
Yes.
Okay, so, yeah.
Real quick, this was on the record that the piece I did hear that I have not heard in a long time was the kind of certified kitchen. And it's something that I spent probably 10 years for the county, so the county has some efforts in that. There was some conflict between the private sector and that too, so I can talk to Jeff a little bit and then about kind of the work that maybe we're already looking at, because it really was a desire for the community, but also our local farmers. They would love to have places where they could extend their seasons by canning and doing that kind of stuff too. So there's definitely a need up there. I don't know if it needs to be tied to this, but I can share that information with Jeff.
That'd be a good thing to dive into, Jeff, would be the update to the county fairgrounds, because they're rebuilding new buildings and they could very well be.
Their concession area actually is a certified
meeting
kitchen.
spaces, things like that.
I would also put in another plug for just looking at whether skateboarding, like there's another facility could be co-located with something. Because Sandstone's so far away and so hard to access, and everything else is really small.
Oh, the bus access time.
Yeah,
the
bus access. Yeah, Aaron.
The one behind the rec center is not usable. I see people there all the time.
Really? I never see
I go to the
them
tennis
there.
court and there's always two
Really?
kids there, every time.
Maybe same 3 kids.
Could be, I don't know.
Pretty good.
It's a little I mean, it's a little bleak even by skateboarder standards. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, like,
Thanks.
I mean, my husband, who's king of Blake, like, it's his life. He's like, oh, like, hurts my soul.
Yeah.
I'll
It's
tell you, I'll
not
drive
easy.
home tonight and there'll be people at Sandstone.
Oh, yeah,
And it'll be
there's people.
snowing. It's the one spot you can buy, no matter
Yeah.
what time it is, there are people out using
It's a
that
great
facility.
facility. It's just hard to.
It's hard, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for younger kids.
And we tried to get bus access there, but RTD won't operate outside Old County. They we've worked on that for decades, and they won't send a bus out that way.
We have transportation issue there.
Whole different conversation.
I mean, it would be fun to, like, if we start dreaming big, have a snow train. Like, I mean, you know, they have in Denver. Like, in Denver, there's snow train, and it's connected to the skate park.
Oh.
Like, and just when it snows, I mean, when it snows, like, people try to beat the snow plows on the paths. Like, they'll be trying to beat to get their skis out, but people try to make Sunset Hill into a train park sometimes. It might be kind of fun. A little bit, like a little train. I can't afford to go skiing either.
Okay, so the next question is on public outreach. So suggestions for public outreach in terms of like who should be who should be focused for public outreach, what kind of public outreach tools. So there's like surveys, focus groups, you know, sort of in-person questions. Where, so any thoughts you have about how public outreach should be conducted?
Feels like the second and third question go together. Should we really keep them apart still? I mean,
Well, the third one, yeah, the third one seemed really similar to me. So
Yeah.
my answer for the second one is my answer to the third one.
okay, well,
I'm just gonna say my one answer, which is, to me, I feel like we get a lot of, I feel like the newspaper is a great way to get people to be engaged, so I would recommend some sort of Times call related advertisement, and just as a way to, like, whatever we choose, whether it's a public meeting or whatever, it seems like there's a lot of engagement through that, so that's just my one idea.
Sports group, community groups, next door neighborhood. And then surveys. Public.
great. And
I don't have a really good idea, because last time we had a couple of big meetings at the senior center, and it's all folks who are already gung-ho. And so, I mean, I guess I'm thinking more of I'm trying to get it passed before, or design it so it will pass. And so we need more outreach early. I mean, choosing a location is gonna turn some people off, and the fact that we have to put these down as an itemized list is gonna be a problem. The one we passed in '99 passed because everybody could see a net benefit. And now it feels to me, even not knowing anything, it's gonna be too easy to say, yay, no, yeah, you know, I mean, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. I'll use these three things, but not those. So that it's gonna be, the lawyers coming back are gonna be a tricky problem for us. And so, you know, I don't know how you say vote for all. I mean, which is what we're gonna wanna say, you know, you know, we as a board, park board, wanna do the parks thing or the recreation thing. But we can't just hang the other guys out to dry. And so this is really gonna be a problem. I mean, I don't know how you get around it. The whole, if you say like that we must keep these separate, that's really hard. And I understand the staff, and especially
It wasn't
Harold.
me making the decision.
No, I get it. and I understand that Harold is constrained or feels constrained by this, but this feels like it needs to be a huge effort to try to wheedle that somehow. Otherwise, we're in trouble right from the beginning. We're going to have the same problem we did 3 years ago, where people are going to say, in a macroscopic way, oh, competitive, I see that word, I'm done. And people are going to say, that much for a library that I never walk in? No way. Or for a rec center or for whatever. And I want this to, I mean, it just feels, so for me, that means public outreach to Harold to try to gang them together, or everything really early, because we're doing this as a package. It looks like it's a bunch of different things, but it's a package, you know. And I don't know how we say that. Yeah, I don't know how we say that, but that, and again, that's just my opinion, but that's based on the 20-some year ago version and the 3-year ago version. You know, where we got right and wrong from that. I don't know if that really answered the question, sorry.
No, it's good. I agree with you. But I don't know how to do that. Scott?
Yeah, I have the same, but I kind of looked at the third one before the second one, but when you have a complex question versus status quo is always going to win, because you have disparate people all fighting for those other different pieces. It's destined to lose, because you're never going to hit majority on 12 different packages that are there. So it has to be like, it does have to be like a recreation sort of package, or the overall package, or I don't think anything will pass, because you're picking and choosing, you start breaking it down really quickly. And I don't know, I think that's a communication nightmare to try to manage. Well, this guy wants this thing on the list, and that guy wants something else, and whatever, and then nobody ends up winning, because 30% are going to vote for nothing, and so that is a huge amount, and I think it's our best number probably that we've ever passed anything until 70%. So 30% voting for nothing right off the bat. So you have to hammer it out of the park to get any one of these things to pass, to beat the nothings. So we have a communication sort of issue if we're going to get to this level of detail and breaking things out. I think in terms of outreach, I think what was great was like the museum event. I think it was parks and open space, and or transportation did stuff too, all together, and people. There were presentations, and there was a mix of presentations plus the dot boards and things that we've done there before. But going to existing events, so whether they're private events, they're open to the public, like whatever Lucan is putting on, or if it's Cinco de Mayo, it's not just like Rhythm on the River, right? So it's got to be a diverse amount of events. We have tons of events all over the city. That's where people are out and doing things already. Go and interact with them. Don't just do a city event and have them come to a city event. Go out and find people in special groups that are there. I think a lot of times too, when there's placement for any of these things, I think there should be specific, interest in outreach to those neighborhoods or those communities that are most impacted. Right? It's great that Dry Creek's now going to get all the stuff that they've wanted for 20 years, but there's going to be a ton of traffic. So how are neighborhoods going to deal with traffic, and how do we get the bus to get over there, and how do we get roads that are not killing people to go over there, because Clover Basin's horrible. But that sort of stuff. There's a long list on communications.
That's great. You should. Okay.
I think you looked in my notes. You cheated. No, okay. I think people are going to go for this. So it's the Make Longmont Awesomer campaign. And you go with enthusiasm, not with pens. And I think that this could really go. And yeah, it's a package, but you go with a brainstorm mindset. You go with a listening, open and enthusiastic mindset. And I think this is going to go. But really, as you said, the diverse group, we seem to hit 45 to 65-year-old white women really well in this city, and white men. But we just don't seem to get the voice from any place else. Look around at us, you know what I mean? And so Cinco de Mayo, Day of the Dead, go out to those festivals. Don't be under a thing. have it be around like invite kids and older people, like make things an unconventional structure. If it doesn't look like just stand here at this table or I have this clipboard, you get different viewpoints and enthusiasms and ideas when you mix things up like that. And you may have a big sandbox that people are placing things in, and then people are talking to people around. I don't know, because I didn't think about it for that long, but I think those are the ways to go. School festivals, I think, would be a thing to do. Like, schools all have their festivals and their meetings. There's the Latino parents meetings with the school district. I think that is a very important group that doesn't get consulted enough because they underutilize our facilities quite a bit because they have safety concerns that are different maybe than other parents. So I'm thinking this is going to be awesome. You just have people make Longmont awesomer, not the quality of life tax. Just how are you going to make Longmont awesomer? And if people feel like they have agency and they have voice and that their ideas could come to something, then they're going to get behind it and say, oh yeah, oh well, my stuff isn't here, but it's at the library. It's going to be so cool, right? Like, I'll head it up. Sounds great. I don't want to quit my job, but I might have to, so I can head it up.
There's going to be a transition between on the ballot when some outside entities do need to like manage the.
I feel like this needs to happen before the ballot.
But this is that's what I think. This is the key: is we've got to figure out how do we use the outreach to start building excitement, so that it's not once it's on the ballot that people start hearing about it.
And what about student groups? I mean, what about high school student groups? Like, let's have them plan things.
Sorry, that's one of my notes too. But the idea of us going to talk to the kids is kids talking to kids too. If you could get those in the schools, those make Longmont awesome, or from kids groups going and talking about it, be great.
You got the kids to pitch some of the elements that go into it, like a design class at Longmont High or whatever. Then you got the families and the whole school excited that they're building the thing.
Right. I mean, I wish we had a youth council. Lafayette has a youth council. I wish our city government.
We do.
You have it?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Children, youth, and families. Yeah. We're at the youth center.
Okay. I did not know that we had a youth council. All right. Good. Well.
Hi.
Hi. Any suggestions?
I had two thoughts when I was thinking about this earlier in last week, I guess. So one was following through with my original thinking about like who would actually be the beneficiary, the most important beneficiary of the rec center, which is the youth groups, I think. And so similar kind of themes of like PTA, maybe school board, other events at schools in the area would probably be one area. I'm really trying to get into those like young families. Avoid, I think you said the other group of individuals and try to get them that we don't really hear from us as much as one. And the other thing that was in my mind, which is so millennial of me to say this, but it's like the world has changed a lot with COVID and we're getting more online and like maybe we should embrace that, and so we should be blasting more. I think Manoj made us next door, but like maybe it's not how we necessarily communicate and facilitate these conversations, but we can at least get attention and bring people into the discussion from platforms such as Nextdoor and like the Longmont Twitter account and so forth. So those are my two ideas.
Maybe like a young person version of Nextdoor.
I don't know what that is actually. I'm
not sure either, but
I guess I think it's TikTok, but I don't know if we have a TikTok.
Why not?
I don't know. I'm too old for that.
Okay, well, I have some similar. I really would like to see us solicit feedback at all the related facilities, so that you're actually getting feedback from the people that are using those, like have solicit feedback from people that are at Centennial and at the rec center and at the ice pavilion and, those kinds of things, and say, what are your ideas? What if what do you need more and what do you need less? I want to make sure if we do surveys that they're really robust, kind of statistically relevant surveys and not just like, go online and fill out this, but really conducting real surveys. I like the idea of focus groups, and also I don't know what you were talking about, the meeting at the museum, but it sounded like something like that could be fun, like some kind of community interactive, where people can learn about the different ideas and provide feedback and interact with each other. And I definitely wanted to make a concerted effort to engage more diverse communities, and I like the idea of going to different events as one way, but also just thinking about locations where you could potentially interact. Maybe grocery stores, I don't know if that would be positive or negative. And then I am interested in the idea of us as PRAB, like hosting some kind of community feedback session on the recreation components, just to solicit feedback from the recreation community at large. I don't know if we can do that or what that would look like, but I think it's interesting. Okay, John.
As I went early, I thought of more ideas as we were talking, and another place that I think seems to have a lot of people coming through is the farmer's market. Just location. And I was thinking, like, there's kind of two phases of this in my world. One is the what should go in the building, like that, like what are we going to pitch? But then there's also the, hey, we decided what we're going to pitch, but now we need to get people to vote for it. And at that phase, I feel like there should be maybe city staff, maybe Parks and Rec board people. I won't be on it anymore, so you guys should do this. But like with setups, with architectural models and like fun activities, like at things for months before this thing happens, so everyone knows what it is. Not like you said, you're reading the ballot and you're like, what's this? So.
Staff can't work on it
until once it's on the ballot.
We can't
work on
it. Yeah, they can't.
You can talk about it now when you're soliciting feedback.
Oh yeah,
right, but as soon as it's on the ballot,
there can't be a phase where someone knows that you should vote for it.
Staff can't.
And there has to be.
That's just the facts.
Yeah,
right.
That's all we can share.
Can PRAB do that?
Yes.
That there was different opinions in 2019, so that we need to vet that with legal, because there were some of the legal staff that said no, which
they're all gone.
Yeah.
But so ultimately, you're saying we can get feedback of like what should we build, but once we say we want to try to build this, then everyone has to go.
As long as it's consistent with city council, because we're an extension of city council.
Yeah.
Right.
My opinion is yes, because when Dan talks about what happened in '99, the Park and Rec Board was very
right.
Yeah.
I just have a question. So let's go with crazy idea. Everything gets passed. We're basically talking about almost doubling the mill levy rate and adding 15% to the sales tax rate. I don't think either of those are tenable, right? I mean, we have to have a conversation of, great, this is a brilliant, let's make a Longmont awesome list, but that's a huge amount of money that most people can't afford. I mean, doubling your property taxes for most people is a non-starter.
I would agree.
So there's got to be some sort of refinement within the conversation because everybody can just ask for everything, but you're never going to pass anything.
Do you anticipate? So I listened to the recording of the city council. I couldn't go to the meeting, but I listened to the recording, and there was a lot of back and forth among the council members of what should be on, what shouldn't be on, and do you anticipate it's going to be smaller? Like after the initial public outreach and feedback, it will be a smaller package?
My guess is yes. Because even at that meeting, the city manager had made comments about Union Reservoirs on there, that there was possibly another way to do that Montgomery Farm could come off the list. There was talk about, from different council members, about should performing arts stay on there, stay off. The big argument for that is that the 50 million would be seed money to get other investors in to really foot the majority of that. So there's all those different things that need to be weighed in on.
And if it was Union Montgomery, I got a feeling so that a desire to have some sort of prioritization.
Yeah.
And then as the dollars came in, that line would get kind of drawn. If you had those priorities, these are the dollars, and now here's the line that you work with.
But you probably need that package though in order to get the.
Right.
I mean, unless you did something, I mean, I keep thinking about Denver's like culture and facilities district, you know, that generates money and then gets allocated to things. But they didn't have to, it wasn't set up with specific things in mind, I think. I don't know, I'd have to look at the mechanism.
About creating the district, is that what you're talking about? Or
Well, I just don't know
is-
how they created that. It funds very similar kinds of things, but on an ongoing basis.
The other thing in the conversation that, you know, there are folks that want to create a library district. And so if that would go to a vote, do dollars for a branch library stay in? You know, those are all, there's a lot of things that need to be happening for us to be ready for July or August.
Well, I mean, just back to the conversation about the complexity, I feel like the sooner you all can gather like really meaningful input to narrow down that package, the better. I mean, you know, end of March maybe would be ideal to try to get enough initial feedback to have a prioritized package that you could then, you know, further vet to set things up to decide for on the ballot. Because you're really gonna have to build some buzz around it.
I just wanted to clarify the number you just said. Did you say 15% sales tax or 15% increase in sales tax?
15% increase in sales tax. It's
I'm just looking at
0.5.
3.53 to 4.79. Is that the number we're talking
Oh,
about?
I thought it was like,
Says the
I
current
said-
city sales tax is 3.53%.
yeah, it says 1.26, it's even higher amount.
Well, that's for the city's part of it.
Yeah.
Altogether, we pay 8.
Yeah.
But we're talking
I
about
was saying,
going
I
from
thought it was
8 to
3
9.5.
point, yeah, I thought it was 3.53 to a little over 4 because of, so,
When you said 15, I was like,
I was
you
looking
can't
at the
possibly
bottom
have
of-
15% sales tax.
Yeah, no, 15% sales tax,
Right,
15%
okay.
increase. So the bottom of chart, the top chart on page 10 says that it is 0.56% add-on to the 3.53, but the text above it says that it is 1.26% sales tax increase.
Okay. It was the 15% that scared me.
Yeah, no, it's not to increase the sales tax to 15%.
But like, no way.
It's a 15% increase.
Got
Yeah.
Cool.
So, this is a separate thing, but related. Anything else on this? Yeah.
Just idea for the marketing side of it, to get other groups out there, just because Ben and I have been involved with this, but there's other groups in Longmont that have benefits of trying to make Longmont awesomer. We were on the group for the Visit Longmont and the Chamber there too, and all those groups can kind of get behind trying to do some marketing to try to push this out to make a benefit for them as well too.
So my related but separate question is, during that conversation, there were 2 council members who were advocating for using some of the existing Denver Broncos funds to build a dome. And I didn't really understand what that was. I mean, it sounds like a recreation facility is what they had in mind, but they weren't necessarily in favor of the rec center. So I just wondered if you guys have any more information about, or if that you heard the same amount that I heard.
Yeah. Okay. And it's only like $1 million, so you can't.
No, or operate it.
Right. Yeah, okay.
A little small then.
You made really small.
How is that related to the Broncos?
Spinal tablets.
So the city of Longmont got just under $1 million from the sale of Broncos. All different, everybody that was in the, what is the name of the district?
Stadium tax.
Stadium tax district got money back and the city got almost $1 million. So there's a number of ideas of how to use that money. The challenge is you really can't start new programs because once the money's gone, there's nothing to keep that, those programs going. So a number of council members have made suggestions of how that money could be used. And I believe they're having a discussion about that at the first meeting in January.
Sounds like we could repair Centennial Pool and then we just have some.
Well, I think the one thing though that it brings up is, we had talked about sort of the cost factor associated with the rec center, and I think if there were, my sense was this was something that would be more affordable access to recreation. That was the idea. I mean whether or not it would actually work, but I think that the notion of, is there a way in the future to be able to make some of the recreational facilities more affordable? Is there like a sliding scale? Can we reduce the need for the facilities to cover so many of their own costs?
Yeah.
That's, we don't have to talk about that today, but I think that that's a factor that we should be thinking about in the future. Okay, cool. Good discussion. So where do you think it will be in January when we have our meeting? Do you think you guys will be working on your outreach plan?
Yes. When we'll be ready to report back.
Awesome. Okay. Great. Thanks everyone for sharing. Okay, so we still have an agenda. Discuss items from the packet updates. Did anyone have questions from the updates provided in the packet? Scott?
I'm just curious, since we're pretty much we're done with the year and through, I think it's the first full year of recreation running Union Res in terms of I think it's 750,000 or 744,000. How does that look pre-COVID or whatever, or how? That's what we're hoping.
How much is it?
We're about 250 ahead
Wow,
of
yeah.
19 numbers.
So not just having rangers collecting money, we collected more.
They did, and I think, the things, as I looked at that program, there's a couple of reasons we wanted to do that. One is, there's almost a disincentive for the rangers who are trying to control activity and people and manage behavior to try to increase use as they're trying to manage that. So I think having recreation manage that, and then the rangers focusing on those other pieces, I think really put the right skill sets in the right spot to really help facilitate that. And I think we have some good conversations between the groups on how, as you increase use, what we need to do to make sure that we keep it safe and fun for everybody too.
It really seems like the staff are trying to figure out how we work together. This last year was much better than the first year. And that sounded horrible, but it just was we got our feet underneath us and only feel like that's gonna continue to get better.
Okay.
As an example of Union being sort of ignored for a long time or disorganized is, we're trying to go through the boat storage and say there's 50 boats there. There's only 10 that have actual owners that we know of. And some are abandoned, some are, no license, no marking. Our staff is checking through state records to try to figure out who owns these boats and whether they want them back or whatever. So it's just an old place we're trying to slowly build up to modern
We could
times.
start a new city sailing program.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're having monthly meetings now with the Rangers, and it's not just last year. It really has evolved over the last 5 years. And then COVID had its thing, but it was the first place to come back in COVID and killed it. So it's an interesting area that and the boat storage is a really good example that the Rangers don't have anything to do with the administration of that. Well, we're really good at that. That's an area we really excel. They're really good at checking on the things in their facilities and getting the physical part of it. So we got a really good handle on a whole new boat storage thing, which, we were cheap. We were too cheap for boat storage, so.
if I could say something
Yeah.
related. So as someone who has a boat there, everybody knew you pay every other year, and then nobody would ever really worry because your sticker was kind of new, and that's all you just. That's what everybody just like watched out for each other. That's what you would do. Just make sure you stop them, even if you never used your boat. You just kind of had a sticker.
Yeah, that
once in a
gravy
while.
train is over.
No, but like you would have to go. You would have to go to Union Res to get to be like, I want to pay. And they're like, I don't even know how to do that.
Well, that's where, you know, Jeff's group and Ben have done a great job of, you know, trying to modernize that, make sure people have easier ways to pay. Yeah, I think there's just nothing but opportunities out there to.
And then the Rangers have ordered new pylon setups, new markers, stickers that are going on the boats.
Again, that conversation we can have is that, you know, Jeff has been on that cost recovery and putting dollars into programs, return dollars on investment. When PWNR and Public Works Natural Resources really ran that, it just went right back to the general fund and it is kind of gone. So I think the idea now that, you know, Jeff and his group can take those dollars and try to reinvest and try to do more of it is great.
Yeah.
There was a short update about McIntosh Lake is now in the city. Did we ever get a boat? There was a discussion a year ago that I never ever saw it. Maybe
No.
we didn't need it, but
We do need it, so Dan Wolford's
There's some
previous
extras
group.
at Union.
Yeah, that's exactly.
there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the why not?
I don't know if those are the boats you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there was going to be a patrol
Yes,
on weekends,
so,
and
So we just, that was one of the supply chains things, that we just have not been able to get it.
Okay.
It's been on order. Bryce has been working on that, so we have taken one of the open space boats and we have been able to get it out there. We have had people on the water actually a little bit, but.
oh, okay, I just never saw it.
It's actually stored over there at McIntosh, so it was kind of stored back here, now it is stored over there, so the Rangers can go take that out. So yes, it's a rollover to finish up the acquisitions on that. Our fleet managers that do those boats, they also do everything that has a motor on it. And as the city is trying to make this transition towards electric vehicles and stuff, they're just overwhelmed with supply chain issues and trying to get the vehicles we need. Boats,
I didn't know if
ATVs.
the
all
problem
this
has kind of settled down, in my opinion.
And have you seen that too? I think we have
in
as
the
well.
usage and stuff this year, and so I didn't know if we decided not to bother, or I was just curious. And you know, you reminded me with the update
Yeah.
here.
So
We have two jet skis on there.
yes, that's what it.
Ah.
That's what it is.
Will also be utilized.
That might be a
That's what
smarter, easier
what
way
we-
to go. Yeah, you're
That's what we
right.
went with. We
Yeah.
talked to fire about the best vehicle to have for patrol out there, and our fire department said it's by far a lot easier to trailer, move, get
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
access to, and contact people on a
Yeah,
jet
you're
ski.
open, and here I'm right part of the community.
Right,
That
if you need to
makes
pull
sense.
people out of the water, it's just, there's a lot of stuff. Hygiene Fire actually comes over and partners with us, and they do their training out there on their jet skis as well, so.
Okay. The other one I had was on the Button Rock was mentioned in here that February we get an update, I think it is. I've had several people complain to me or tell me that they still take their dogs and let them off the leash. Are dogs going to be allowed or disallowed when that comes out?
So that will be part of the conversation going to council. I'm not sure if Danielle's going to give the updates on that, but I think the staff recommendation going forward would be the no dogs, but I think we also have looked at what our response would be if the public or council gave us other direction too.
I've had several people say they will be showing up with guns. I mean, literally, that I want to take my dog there. They're already grumbling about having to have it on a leash on the
Right.
Sleepy Lion part. You
There's
know.
people on council that feel the same way.
Okay,
So
well,
we'll
I'm
see how it
just,
goes.
I'll be, yeah, I was just curious if that was out there in public yet. That, anyway, thanks.
What's the current rule? Sorry.
Leashed
It's-
everywhere
It's
now.
leashed everywhere and one dog per
One dog per person.
One dog per
Right.
person on a leash.
And the proposal is no
Well,
dogs
there's
at all.
right now, we haven't got that out. Danielle's still working on that, but.
Well, but I mean,
staff-
working on, I mean, somebody's making a decision.
Well, there'll be decisions, staff recommendations to council, and then council will be able to take public input, ask staff how that fits into it, what the rationale for those staff recommendations are, based on truly the desire at Button Rock, and our management plan is laid out that the primary reason we have Button Rock is for water quality as a watershed.
Are they gonna outlaw geese too then? I mean, have you been by McIntosh lately?
We don't have the goose problem out there, but.
Yeah, and geese don't have the same kind of disease transfer that.
So then so you have the water quality, so you talk about that. The next piece that we look at Button Rock is really is a preserve, and that really is to provide a place for wildlife.
No, I understand all this.
So then
I
you get
tell
down to
folks
the tertiary piece is how do we bring humans and their activities into that environment? And that's the way we'll kind of present our findings, and then council can direct staff however they see fit.
They're coming.
They're coming here is what the update. Here, the water board and somebody else that was in that thing.
And sustainability, I believe, so I think it's water
Okay,
sustainability.
yeah, I forgot. Noted. Okay, thanks.
I had one quick question. I just wondered if that RFP for the master plan is out.
We, Jeff and I, are going to be meeting on Wednesday to finalize some verbiage and send it to procurement to get out. We are right.
So early January.
Okay, early January.
Well,
Okay.
she's done work on it, so I'm hoping it's really quick. There shouldn't be any holdup as soon as we can finalize some of these angles that we want to have on there. And then that's a whole process that's very similar to what we just talked about as far as the public input and all of that. And that'll be a whole package of everything you guys have just talked about, specifically related to recreation center and recreation programs.
Okay. Any other items from the packet?
I just kind of wanted to check on Nino Gallo Park, and it looks like it's 90%. And the last time I saw, there were 2 pickleball courts. I was just at the Casa de la Esperanza, their Christmas posada, and I was at their Halloween thing, and I've talked to different families at both ones, and none of them really know what's going on with the park and they're asking like what's there, and something that I'm hearing a lot is soccer, because that neighborhood, they don't play pickleball in that neighborhood, and I think that's supposed to be is that a neighborhood park or a community park?
It's a neighborhood park.
It's a neighborhood park, and there's going to be a community park nearby, but that's where like the hotbed of St. Vrain's best soccer players are. The best soccer players that go on to Niwot High School and lead it to championships are that trailer park right there in Casa de la Esperanza, and they don't actually have a place to play. They play in, and I don't think that they need marked goals and things like that necessarily. They need marked, but soccer is really important to that neighborhood, and they kind of fight for soccer rights. So like in their yards where they have it, it goes directly into people's gardens when they kick the ball and things like that. And I know that like One Click made a pickleball court, but I just kind of wanted to see it.
There'll be a large open turf area there for field sports.
Okay.
Being a neighborhood park, we don't typically program soccer there. Like it's not Sandstone Ranch, it doesn't have the parking capacity for that.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the parking capacity for that, but there's nothing that says you can't have recreation games there whenever you want to.
Yeah, I definitely didn't want.
There won't be goals or anything like that. Bring your own cones and put down pennies, whatever. I've done it all sorts of different ways in my career playing soccer, and so there will be open turf there.
Okay.
That could be used for soccer.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't thinking of it because programmed soccer that's not access to youth in need. They don't have access to that. Yeah, so that's what I was looking for. And I'm just wondering, I don't know, if we could have a marked area that wasn't programmed, that people could we have a marked soccer area with marked goals?
It sets a different standard, and if you mark it and put goals there, the soccer groups will want to play games there, and that causes a whole different set of issues.
We went gone through the whole public process saying this is going to be an open turf field for whatever sort of uses, so we're not going to change it now that have one sport there. It'll be available for all sorts of different field sports, flying a kite, having a picnic, set up your volleyball or badminton nets, go play soccer, go play baseball, whatever you want to do out there.
And what school do they go to?
They go to Indian Peaks.
And what about the middle schoolers?
They go to Sunset. And then they go to Niwot High School.
Some of those kids are playing in our soccer program that we have for middle school.
Yeah.
Because Sunset's
Yeah.
always in there.
Yeah. There's killer soccer. Like, I wouldn't even go out there and play with them. Like, and mess around with them because, like, I get creamed. I've tried it before, but I get creamed. And fun, actually.
So we're technically like over time. If we want to 8:35, do we want to extend till 8:45? I don't know that we need to vote. If it's only going to be 10 minutes, does anyone have anything
That'll work for me.
major?
That's fine.
Okay, well, let's just plan. If we go past 8:45, then we do have to vote. Do you have anything, items from staff?
I just have one. I really want to thank the staff from what was community services, library, recreation, museum, children, youth, and family for all helping with Longmont Lights this last weekend. Again, two beautiful nights, weather-wise, and just lots and lots of people. So thank you to them and to the community for continuing to support that event.
Should have a booth for the rec center.
Signboard.
Exactly what I was
Already
thinking,
set up.
Steve. Like,
The challenge, and that might be where you could help us, because a lot of times when we're organizing the event, we don't have any staff that can do the booth because they're all out doing stuff.
Right, yeah.
It'd be fun, yeah.
Anyone updated, anything?
I think we're good.
Great.
Yeah, we are actually, for Project 8.5, we are having our first educational session with vendors on Wednesday. The RFP is going out tomorrow for the first two neighborhood parks,
Those are
Fox Meadows and Clover Meadow. So our proposals will be due early February.
Cool.
So I'll have more information in January.
This is the design build thing too,
Yeah.
right? Great, okay.
Good luck.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Hope that's good.
anything from the board? Quick items? Scott?
I just have a quick item, it's a recreation item. There are these stickers that are on swings that I don't know if they're official or not, that they're at Thompson Park, and I saw one sticker at Roosevelt Park. So that's what makes me think that they're not official. But basically saying that the swings are for up to the age of 12.
Those are official.
Those are official?
There is something that people love taking those stickers off. We've
Because
tried
they're all
some, we've
in a
used
mess.
Gorilla Tape over them, we've done everything.
They're saying the max age is 12?
Yeah.
They actually, depending on the structure, they'll have different ages on them.
Okay.
And those are supposed to be up there, and then when we have playground inspections, that's one of the things that they will look for, is those stickers are on there so that people know the right age requirements. And the park staff just carries bundles of those, trying to keep them on, and it's just been a challenge.
Okay, because the stickers have been placed on other things and stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So they pull them off and move them.
Yeah, they get pulled off, they get put on
Yeah.
other parts of like the park equipment or whatever, but that's why I'm like, does someone have this collection from Amazon or something, these stickers that just stick them? So it just felt like a very young age to say like, you can't like swing on a swing when
Right,
you're age 12.
So no adults?
Yeah, are
Yeah.
you feeling attacked because you're like, seriously?
Well,
the
that's
swing-
not that I'm like a
swing
huge fan, I just
desires?
thought it was like,
Right.
I think that sounds like a young age to say that's what the word
I'm
is.
not really making fun of it.
Yeah, and we do, Stephen talked about this in the design, we do try even separating those age groups with the types of swings and stuff we use up there to give
Okay.
a little separation in the age groups.
It's a little bit of CYA for the manufacturer as far as if you're a 700-pound 13-year-old, you shouldn't be on swings. But if you're a 150-pound 30-year-old, it's not a problem. But if you sign things, it's all down to the courts. That's all liability.
Okay. Are they relatively new? Because those swings have been there in both parks forever. Okay.
Yeah, they have
They're
different.
both due for
age groups.
replacement, both of
Right,
those
yeah.
playgrounds.
So that would not be something that would be enforced, like no park staff would be like, you're too old for those swings.
No, it's usually the other way around. If someone gets hurt on something where it's not age appropriate, you know, those are the things that it's, no one enforces until it ends up in court.
Thank you.
Carting kids in the swing.
Yeah.
Get out of there, 8th grader.
I think that's what I was saying there, I was like, oh your God, that's what those cameras were for in the parks.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, anything else before we wrap up? All right, Jeff and Manoj, thanks again.
Yes,
Enjoy
thank
your
you.
free- Your free time on.
You guys want to
Second
name the
Monday
rec center
of every
after us? It could be Yangwar Ellen Bogan.
Oh, yeah,
I like that.
Awesome. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do you have a second?
I'm still my cricket guy, just so you know that.
All right, all in